So you want to make a clay gnome. Here's how we do it. Take your clay and divide it in half. So I like to take my hands, hold it, and then kind of like twist and tear into two pieces. And then what I want you to do is take one half and tear a little bit more off and then add it to the other side. Set this bit aside to use later. And then you're going to take that clay and we want to form more of an oval kind of a shape. So what I'm doing is taking my hands like this and then patting them together to create more of an oval kind of a shape. See, more like this. Okay, now we're going to make a pinch pot. So you're going to take your thumb, put it in the end, and push it as far down as you can so that your thumb feels like it's almost touching the bottom if your thumb even goes in that far. Okay, so I still have my oval shape. Now I'm going to be making a pinching motion when I'm inside. So I'm going to start at the very, very top and just like pinch while I turn with my other hand around just in the very, very top there. And I want it to feel like a consistent thickness at the very, very inside. Okay. And once you get all the way around, then you can come down a little bit. So coming down with my fingers. My thumb is still inside, pinching against those fingers. While I turn and then come down a little bit more. Keep pinching. You're gonna get a bit of a workout. Whew. If your hand's getting a little bit tired, you can try switching to the other hand and continue the process. Pinching around, working your way down a little bit more. Now you don't want your clay to get too thin in any spot, because if it gets too thin, it might collapse right there. So notice how I'm keeping this an oval shape. We don't want this to get too wide and squat. We want to try to keep it a cone shape because we're going to be making this into our cone hat. So I'm still working around and around and around. And I'm on the very, very edge here. Now I don't want this to get too thin because it might break. So I think that's actually pretty good. I'm going to leave it like that. It's still a cone shape. Now here's the tricky bit. Take my hand and just very gently, I'm going to form this into more of a point. But if you go too fast, you're going to end up squishing the whole thing. So I'm kind of working from the middle and up, trying to get that clay up into a point. And we don't want our point to be too pointy because things that are too skinny break off very easily. So I'm working my way around, making sure I check it from all angles. And this is looking pretty good. Now here's the thing about the tip. If you want to kind of like kink it, you know, you can do that. Maybe yours has more of a curve. It's totally up to you what you do with the very top. Maybe yours just sticks straight up. If you later want to go back and add a ball to the end, you're welcome to do that. Okay. All right. So next, I'm going to actually add my nose. So with my extra clay, I'm going to tear off a little bit and roll it into a ball. So maybe you want your nose to be a little bit smaller. I kind of like having a big nose like a traditional gnome. All right, so if I put this higher up on my clay, I'm gonna have more space for a body, but a shorter hat. So I like to put mine a little bit closer down to the bottom. Whenever we attach clay to clay, we always want to make sure we're doing something called slip and score. So I've got a wet toothbrush, and where I'm going to put it, I really want to make sure I scratch it up good with the toothbrush. See how you can kind of see those scratch lines? And it needs to be a little bit wet. And I do the same thing with the side of my clay I'm going to be attaching. Get it really roughed up. And a little bit wet. So I'm going to be putting these together, and what those scoring lines do is it kind of works like Velcro so that the clay won't fall off. So notice how I'm putting some of my fingers inside, that braces it, and taking my clay, pushing it, and kind of giving it a little wiggle test. Kind of twisting it on. Push and kind of wiggle. Okay. All right, we're gonna come back to this later, but we're gonna make the rim for the hat. So I'm taking some of my clay, and what I wanna do is make a coil. So I'm gonna start by rolling it in my hands, and it's gonna get too long to work with properly. So I'm gonna move this mat to the side, and I'm actually going to work directly onto the table. So keeping my hands flat, I like to kind of overlap my hands like this. I'm going to roll it out from one side back over to the other side. Here we go. Trying to make it consistent. Okay. Now that's pretty long. I'm going to bring this back, and really the goal is I want it to wrap around from the top of the nose all the way around to the back side. So I think, yeah, that's going to be long enough. Let me pinch it off where it's going to be long enough. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have it kind of overlap the nose here. So it looks like the hat is hanging over top of where the eyes would be. The hat is really, really big. And then it's going to kind of come down at an angle and meet closer to the bottom on this side. So before we attach it, you guys know by now, we have to score where it's going to go. So I've got my wet toothbrush. And then I'm going to score, make really scratchy lines. Be kind of rough with the toothbrush. Don't be super gentle. We want to really rough up that clay. And if you're just kind of guessing where it's going to go, you can fix it later. Okay. So now I'm all the way back around. And then on my coil here, I'm going to do the same thing to one side. Really scratch it up. Alright, so now I have to place the scratch to scratch parts so that it sticks together. So I'm going to place it. If you get a little bit of dried clay, that's alright. Place it over my nose. Kind of come around the back side, pushing it kind of into place, and then do the same thing on the other side, pushing it into place, and then where it overlaps a little bit, let it overlap a little bit, and then kind of smooth the ends together. Okay. You might like the way that rim looks on your hat, just the way it is, So you can kind of smooth away where those scratch lines were to begin with. You can see on my first gnome that I made here, I actually liked how that rim looked. It looked like the rim of a hat. And I went in with a popsicle stick and made it look like that texture, like on a winter hat, just by pressing really lightly with a popsicle stick. So that's an option if you want to make it look like the rim of a hat. But what I think I'm going to do here is actually take my thumb and smush and smooth that clay so that the only rim showing is the one on the bottom. So I'm just like smushing that clay up and smoothing it into the rest of my cone with my thumb. And if you want to make your rim a different way, be my guest. We can be super creative. You don't have to do everything the exact way I'm showing you. Almost all the way around. My clay is nice and soft, so it's easier to smooth out. And there we go. Okay. All right, so next is the beard. Now you can use a couple of different tools for the beard. You can use the needle tool. You have to be very, very gentle. Some of you may just want a mustache. Maybe you want yours to look like a goatee. Maybe you don't have a beard at all and you just have hair back here. The choice is totally up to you. But if you're using this tool, you want to just scratch the very surface. We don't want to make our clay too fragile. And I'm making it kind of look like a smooth beard here. You could also use a skewer, a wooden skewer. Does the same thing. See how I'm going all the way from the hat, kind of at an angle down. But my favorite tool to use for this is actually using a fork, because it's going to go a lot faster. It's got all of those tines. And I think I want my gnome to look a little more scruffy, like he's been working hard. So I'm taking my fork and I'm making more short lines, and I'm not even going to clean away those little clay burrs that form, because I want him to look like maybe he's been working so hard he got stuff stuck in his beard. Now, if you made the rim of your hat a little bit higher on the back side, we can kind of make it look like he's got hair coming out of the back of his hat too. All the way around. Gonna rough it up. There we go. Got the beard done on my Gnome. Now here's the fun part. You can attach things with your extra clay. So maybe, like I mentioned earlier, maybe you've got a ball on the tip of the hat. Maybe you've got some feet poking out from the bottom or some hands. You can see on this one, I added the hands and feet, and I even added a little flower to my hat. So this is the point where you can get creative by attaching things. So just remember, whenever you attach anything to your clay, you want to make sure to score first and slip. So you're making those roughed up parts with the toothbrush and water. Water forms that slip. So what if on this one I do the point of the ball on the tip of the hat? Just remember too, whatever you add on, we don't want it to be too skinny, because then it will probably break off. So, and I could even make this look kind of like, maybe I want it to look like texture just by taking my toothbrush, pressing in some texture. think I want this to kind of lay on its side. Yeah, cute. All right. Have fun, guys.